Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to Stroud Book Festival 2020, wherever you're joining us from. My name's Caroline Sanderson and I'm Artistic Director of the festival. Now, this is a year when we've all been, and particularly at the moment again, we're all having to spend much more time living and working at home. So perhaps we owe it to ourselves to make those surroundings as beautiful and useful as we can, to paraphrase William Morris. Earlier this year, I recorded a socially distanced interview for Stroud Book Festival with someone who is most definitely a guru on this subject. The internationally famous designer Cath Kidston, who lives here in the Stroud Valleys. To mark the publication of her gorgeous new book, A Place Called Home, she kindly allowed us to film the interview in her beautiful yet practical home, a place with real personality, as you'll see. So sit back and enjoy in a pre-recorded event kindly sponsored for us by Bailey Paints. Hello, and a very warm fireside welcome to Stroud Book Festival 2020. My name's Caroline Sanderson and I'm Programme Director for the festival. And oh, what a huge pleasure it is to be here at home in Gloucestershire with none other than Cath Kidston, whose iconic prints and homewares, both beautiful and useful, have long been coveted and owned by so many of us. Cath has very kindly agreed to chat to Stroud Book Festival at home in her sitting room, where we're going to be talking about her latest book, the very sumptuous and inspiring A Place Called Home. Cath, thank you so much for allowing us to visit your beautiful
You're very
home.
welcome. Thank you for including me in the book festival.
Oh, no,
it's great to be here.
We're often told that when we walk into the house that's right for us, we'll know straight away. And I think it was a bit like that when you moved to this house, wasn't it?
It was a little bit. I remember coming down the drive and, you know, we're just below Penswick Beacon here, if anyone, I'm sure people know the area well. And I've walked in this area a lot and brought my dogs here for years and I never knew this place existed. And when I walked in, my jaw dropped. It was a very rainy day and it was very dark. And the house was quite dark when we bought it. But there was something about it. By the time I got into the second room, I was like, oh, this is my dream.
And on a rainy day as well, because you're meant to see places on a rainy day, aren't you? Yeah.
I know. I still can't believe we found this place. You know, it's so strange. We lived just up the road for many years. My husband's lived near Stroud for, makes him quite old, 40-something years, you know. And so we know this area fairly well, but isn't it amazing here? There are so many hidden away valleys and places to go.
Yeah, I think you could live here. I've often said I think you could live here for decades and you still find new places just on the doorstep.
I know. Aren't we lucky?
Yeah,
really.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So have you found out much about the history of the house and has that influenced you in any way in what you did when you came here?
We did find the people who were here before were very knowledgeable about the history of the house and they printed a little booklet about it. And it's like a lot of, around Stroud, there are lots of houses that were owned by wool merchants who had made stacks of cash in the 18th century and then wanted posh houses to go with their cash. And so this house was built at that time and the guy who built it he went on a trip to America and he came back and he added on these tall windows, which we can see in the room now, but I don't know if the camera can pick up, which are tall windows with Gothic tops. And he'd got the idea from America and things like that. I mean, I read a lot about the history of the house and it was there, you know, we were lucky that when we bought this place, the owners had looked after it, but they hadn't really touched it. And so it didn't have modern bathrooms. It had the original floors, the beautiful fireplaces, the shutters, you know, all the things that I dream of were still here. And so to me, what was important is that we moved in and made a really comfortable, friendly family home, but let the character of the house be there and not kind of interfere with it. And strangely, I think you notice that if you're like me and you love decorating and so on, I look through magazines, I go on Pinterest. You know, this month everyone's got a navy blue kitchen and it looks amazing, whatever it is. I was really determined to be strong-willed and not try and follow too many trends. because it's great for a year or two, and then you can kind of sometimes date a house. You know, my mum had a pine kitchen, and I know she put it in 1975 or whatever it is. So I just wanted things to last here and feel very timeless. And that was the sort of feeling that I got from having learnt about the history of the house and wanting to keep it very simple and, in a sense, not too fiddled around with.
Yeah, so when you have good features, I mean, that really helps, doesn't it? It's like the sort of bones of the house, I suppose. But do you find that your sort of vision for a house, and obviously you spend a lot of time, looking at other people's houses as well, I suppose, does that vision come quite quickly, or does it, there's that thing, isn't there, that you need to live in a house before you quite understand quite how it works and how you want it to work?
I think it really helps. I mean, there's certain characteristics that I've always done in houses that I've lived in. And so, like, the way I like a bath looking, or the way there's the definite characteristics and colours that I'm drawn to. But to me, it's really important, if possible, to live in a place before you make decisions, because the light, you have to understand different times of year, the way the light works, the way you use the house, all of that kind of thing. And the flow and what makes sense. Yes. And quite often I find I move into a house and I'm set on an idea, and I realise 6 months later that one idea is holding everything else up and was the wrong one. Do you know how it is? I sort of thought, I'm definitely going to have a brown sitting room and it's all going to be neutral. And then I thought, actually, that's the problem 6 months down the line. I do think that. It's really hard. Yes. And once you get set, I mean, this room we're sitting in, for example, I knew I've got 2 panels behind here that my brother gave me that belonged to my parents, and it was really uncanny how they fitted by the fireplace. And so I knew that they were going to be in the room, and whatever colours I did in here needed to connect. So that was a starting point for this room. But I could have painted it all manner of colours. So usually there's a trigger for things, that one thing that I own, I like to use as much of what I own when I move into a place, and try and make things work, and not just kind of try and make it look perfect, but kind of make use of things. And I like those sort of happy accidents where, I don't know, I've got some yellow pillows here someone gave me, and I'd never have worked out to plan and order those cushions, but I like them in the room. Yes. So it's this evolution of things that's how it works.
Why I so love looking at the book, because it's exactly the sort of house that I love. It's a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine to be looking at interiors, magazines and books, and I think it's that thing of where it's the blend, isn't it? I mean, I just have a horror of those houses where, an interior designer's been in and just, for people who could afford it, obviously, but just done the whole lot at once. And that's, they just always feel so impersonal.
I kind of admire people who have that discipline and aren't so emotionally connected to their homes. I'm quite jealous in a way, because for me it's such a personal thing. Yes. And I spend hours sweating over everything and the atmosphere and the feeling. Wouldn't it be great not to mind? I think I could have time to go and do 101 other things. Well, it would, but that's what I do.
I suppose, this is a time when we've all, we might talk a bit more about this later, this is a time when we're all having to spend more time at home. So I think that the space that you're operating in becomes more important, doesn't it?
That's true.
So you write in your introduction to A Place Called Home about the house you grew up in, and how you say, I think, all the inspiration for your work stemmed from it. So tell us about that and how its influence has stayed with you.
Gosh, it's amazing, isn't it? I lived in a house on the border of Hampshire and Wiltshire till I was 12. And I have a very bad memory for many things, like my phone number, lots of important things. But I can remember colour and pattern and prints in my childhood home. Almost photographic memory for it. So my bedroom, pale blue walls, which actually I'm looking at in this room, pale blue walls. It obviously had a lasting effect on me. Rosebud curtains. And then my next room had curtains with bobble fringe, and I used to count the bobbles, when I had to have a rest. But I remember everything about the house, and it was very English. It was chintz, and it was all that kind of stuff. My parents were quite traditional, but it had that sort of quite fun feel of the 60s. I remember the hall was painted orange with rush matting. and we had a parrot and lots of dogs and ponies and all that. Very spoilt, very English childhood. And we left the house when I was 12, and I really clearly remember walking around thinking, I must remember all the rooms. And I don't tend to, now I use my phone a lot because we can remember so much using our phones. But in the old days, I was really happy to take snapshots visually and be able to remember things and not have lots of photographs around me. And it's really important to me that. And often I'm unaware, like when I painted my shops pale blue, we had a pale blue kitchen, you know, all that kind of stuff. So much obviously was in my subconscious. And I sometimes don't realise it until way later and think, that's so strange. I just obviously feel that that's quite comforting. You know, it was a very happy time.
Yes. And I think just as you're talking, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because that's our instinct now. And if you see something we like, we can take a photograph of it on our phone and we have it there. But I think that ability that to visualize things in your mind's eye, because when you walk into a room that you're going to change, that you're going to make how you want it, it's that thing. Some people are able to visualize how it will look, aren't they? And clearly you are. And I wonder if it's something about, as you say, the fact that you actually made a point of trying to remember.
I don't know. I think a lot of creative people have very strong visual memories and they're very quick visually. I know all my creative friends, if we go out antique shopping, they're really quick in the door to spot something. And my non-creative friends don't have that speed. They can do 1,000,001 other things, but they don't have what I call a very quick eye for things. And I think it is a creative thing. And also, I never realised till I was, well into my 20s, dyslexic. Can't even say the word properly. And I think you compensate for that by having a really sharp visual memory. That's for me, that's the way I compensated. Yes. And so I think everyone makes the most of what they're given. And so some people are brilliant with practical. Luckily, my husband's really good with gadgets and organising things and heating systems and all those kind of things where I would just panic. And yet I can hopefully choose him, a nice colour for his office or something like that.
Well, I think you can.
I don't know, that's the idea anyway.
So let's just talk a little bit more about the room that we're sitting in. This is the sitting room in the book. And as you said, this is one of the rooms that really sold the house to you. It's got 3 wonderful windows, so hopefully you can see how light and bright it is. So what mood did you want to strike in here? You've got a separate telly room.
We've got a telly room next door. Yeah, and that was full of the contents of our old sitting room. So I knew it was going to be like sort of red and yellow and pink and blue and all sorts of colours, and all my old car boot treasures next door. Here, because we had the pictures from my parents, and I don't want to say I wanted it more grown up, but it's a room we use if we have friends over and we need a bit more space, but also it's a nice place to come and read, be quiet. It's a bit calmer than next door in a way. And so I wanted it to have that feeling and nothing to be too sort of, and I'm sitting on quite a bright yellow chair, but it's actually for me quite muted, this room, and not too much pattern actually.
And the rugs are quite neat patterned.
Actually,
aren't they?
My main rug that's normally here had a huge hole in it and it's gone to be mended. So this is just temporary actually from bits and pieces, but it's a very, very pale rug. And I've got such a strange mixture of pictures. I love collecting pictures of all sorts. And for people watching, there's behind the camera quite a lot of abstract pictures. There's a lovely picture here by Colin Glenn from Stroud, top right. Some pictures I bought in Barcelona, various bits and pieces. That's from Barcelona. Abstract picture from my friend in Wiltshire. I've just collected things over the years. There's a picture of from Hugh's mum, and antique furniture. The sofas, and there's quite a lot that I had. And then I had to buy the stool to fit the room. Lots of books. The whole house is packed with books,
which we love to see.
Yeah, books is another addiction.
Room, I think that's very
but
true.
But I can never. Lots of design books with pictures, as well as.
And I was going to ask you about so above the fireplace, and I was thinking about this when I was preparing to have this chat, and I thought actually those of us with fireplaces, the thing that you choose to hang over the fireplace it's quite a decision, isn't it?
It's really hard.
It's a central place. So you deliberated, I think, before that. It's a rather wonderful bronze sculpture.
Yeah, we had a big gap there for ages, and then there's a magical foundry, isn't there? Pangolin Foundry, that I'm sure everyone's familiar with. Their incredible work. And another local artist, Dan Chadwick, made that beautiful bronze branch. And I have to say, I really love it. And it's so, the way it's made, the craftsmanship of that, and his concept for it, I love. And it just somehow seemed to fit. I think people think it is a twig. And so that's fine. You know, it's like, have I been clever looking for the right size twig? But actually, it's Dan's bronze branch. And I really love it. And I feel that fireplace, it's such an unusual shape. And I didn't know what the hell I, would put there. And I'm really happy with the branch, I must say. And it feels like it's found a good home.
It's really lovely. Yeah. I hope people can see that it's a bit sort of three-dimensional the way
it floats, doesn't it, off the wall really, with the shadows. It's really lovely, isn't it?
Wonderful.
That's so clever. Both him and that foundry is a fantastic place. Yeah. It's amazing, Stroud. All the different things we've got on our on our doorstep.
So I think this room does epitomise the way that you've successfully mixed new and vintage, which you can see in the book. And I wondered if you could say what's the key to doing that successfully? Because I think, as I said before, I love houses where you can see that there's pieces that people have always had, or their family pieces, but then they sort of mixed it with newer things. And what do you think that's just a sort of instinctive thing, or would you have any?
I don't know. I mean, I think some of it's instinctive and some of it's budget, isn't it?
Yes.
Because it just depends. I mean, the irony now is quite often antique things. There's a lot of antique brown furniture is cheaper than modern furniture.
Yes.
And bits and pieces. So I've got some tables from my mum and dad, like a big old brown table in the hall, which is quite old-fashioned, but it's a really useful size for something. So I put coloured glass on top and hope that it looks more contemporary by having the coloured top on the old table. So some of it's about sort of being practical and using stuff. I mean, in here, there actually isn't there's modern pictures, but not very much modern furniture. And there are lots of really good things, of very basic modern furniture. We all love IKEA and all of that. Fantastic stuff. But some of it's really expensive, new stuff, isn't it? It really is. It is. And so like in here, I'd love a really modern desk there. But, maybe one day, might change it around. So it just depends what one can find within the budget. I quite like getting things made, like simple tables made and then spray painted, because you can just do really classic simple shapes and so on. And and like our dining table, I got made by the guy who was building the house and had it painted, and that's kind of helped. It's quite good. So it's sort of different ways around of doing it. But I love high street stuff as much as antique shops. I'm always interested in all sorts of things. And let's face it, a bargain is much more fun to buy than an extravagance. It's like the reward of a bargain is like an addiction. Definitely. So it's like mixing all those things up.
And it's interesting. Well, I was thinking about brown furniture. I mean, I've been lucky enough to sort of inherit a few pieces of so-called brown furniture from family, and of course that was sort of very much out of fashion. But I can't get rid of it even if I wanted to, because it's got associations and memories. And I think that sort of brings me on to my next question, really, because funny enough, my mother's downsizing at the moment, so she's having to make decisions about what to keep and what not. And then a lot of that's coming my way, and it's pieces that have been in the family for a long time, but they don't necessarily work, or you don't have room for them, and you don't want to be cluttered up. So I wondered if it was ever difficult to, for example, when you moved here, you obviously brought pieces from your other house.
Yeah.
Is it sometimes hard to get rid of things that just don't fit?
It's so hard. It's really painful, isn't it, emotionally? I mean, I don't think I'd ever get rid of something that had been really in the family, like had a long history. Some things my parents just bought for the house when they moved, and they don't feel like they have a long-term thing, that don't feel quite so sentimental, and other things do. But I think it's good to have a clear out now and then. Just try to just sort of, well, not now and then when one makes a room or something like that. I definitely did get rid of some things, and there's always going to be something you regret. But then it's quite nice recycling and using the money to get something else, sorting things out. And everything evolves, doesn't it?
Yes.
It's quite good.
And it's quite nice to have a change sometimes, I think, too, and just swap things around.
It's very hard, like say in here where I've hung all the pictures, to actually start again. Maybe it's a time when you come to repaint a room or something. It's taking everything down and rehanging things in a different way. Because I put everything in the best place I could when we moved in here with what I had. And then I might have come across something else. There's a little picture on the end there I've just bought of a girl in a white nightie with her pony. Yes. And I need to find a proper home for that. And I don't know where. And it's like, do I take something down? Then there's a paint mark. So I think every now and then it's good to have a bit of a change. But it's quite a big wrench, isn't it, doing that?
Yes. Now, your love of flowers comes through in the book. And of course, we think of your designs and we think of a lot of your wonderful floral prints. Although, obviously, there's a lot besides the floral prints. I'm thinking about my son has your football fabric as his blinds.
I love doing those. I love all that stuff.
Bedroom. But we think of your florals. And I wondered, those sort of prints that we think as quintessentially you, how you evolved that sense of pattern and print and of what works well together. Do you think that goes back to the house you grew up in, or is it just it's just an eye that you have?
I definitely think my taste in print evolves and changes. And so now, like one of the print on the front of the book is from my studio that we've just made recently. And I've been doing a lot working with pen and ink. And it depends what things are for. You know, furnishing prints tend to be a little bit quieter than what you might put on a school backpack or something. You know, the end use for products.
Yes.
And now I tend to mainly be working with interiors. Well, here comes my dog Billy. Sorry, barking away. I might almost have to let him out of the room.
I was tempted to say they're part of the furniture.
He might be all right. We'll see if he stays or if he needs to go. He's quite naughty. But so I think my taste has evolved with all of that. I mean, I still love all those old-fashioned rose prints and stuff like that. But also colours change with fashion, don't they? I mean, I think they do that. You know, I was talking earlier about the dark blue kitchen instead of the pine kitchen, whatever. Everything sort of evolves and different fashions come in and out. I'm very into yellow at the moment, yellows and khakis, things like that.
That's what makes it interesting.
So it's quite fun, isn't it? Yeah.
That things do evolve like that.
Exactly.
And just tell us a bit about the garden as well, which obviously tantalisingly you can't see, but I think what you probably can see is these wonderful pots of geraniums, which are really important to you, having flowers in the house, and dahlias here, aren't they? Yeah.
I mean, the actual garden itself, we're lucky here that we've got a great view down. It's a place called Paradise Valley. So when I do my dress mail order and they say, where do you live? And I say Paradise, they go, ooh, you know, first of all, sometimes it's you Cath Kidston and then Paradise. So it's quite an address, but there's a beautiful view down the valley. So I didn't want the garden to be too labour intensive, which our last garden was. So a lot of it's about the views and all of that. And then up behind the house, I've cornered off and fenced off an area, which is just always flowers to pick in the house. And my ambition, where I'm nearly at, but not yet, is to always have flowers 12 months of a year. So right now it's planting paper whites, still got the dahlias. This year I'm growing chrysanthemums, which I've never done before, and they do remind me a bit of my granny, but I'm just beginning to come round to them. And then obviously I'm looking forward to the daffodils here, which are amazing. We're bluebells. It's really for me about, you know, this room, I've got no floral print and it's quite quiet. But if I've got friends here, I always have geraniums, plants, flowers. And the first thing I do when I come home, if it's in the winter and it's nighttime, I go out with my torch, literally, to go and either bring a plant back from the greenhouse or something. And it's a really important thing to me, that sort of connection with nature in the house and so on.
It gives such a lift as well, I think, especially in the winter. And that's a lovely thought, thinking about us going into winter and spring flowers as one of those things that is just, I feel that too. It just gives you a lift, doesn't it? Now, I've got a question here from Louise at Bailey Paints.
Oh, I love that shop.
Kindly sponsored this event.
I think the paint
we all love
came from there. Yeah, I think we're in the Bailey's Paints room.
Yes. So she was asking, so it's been a decade now since you sold your stake in the company that you founded. And I wondered if she wondered if you're surprised that your prints, some of your iconic prints and your colours are still so popular after so long.
I am. It's amazing. I'm delighted to hear that. I mean, here I am in a pale blue room, and I did a lot of pale blue with my last business. You know, the bones of a lot of what I did at Cath Kidston were quite classic, and they were quite sort of, in a sense, traditional, but quite classic and quirky. So there were some. So I think they did last quite a long time. All those basic things like the pale blues and so on. I'm sure she'll agree with me that there's certain things like whites and shades of white, which are, I mean, we all, and how many shades of white can I look at? It's always, never can I find the right one that I want.
You have used quite a lot of white.
Yeah, and it's how does one find that right white? And,
yes.
You know, all those years ago, people were buying, I think most people are probably too young listening, but magnolia paint was everywhere. And that was like a colour. And now we're probably buying heritage white, or I don't know, whatever, it's called something different. But paint, it does change a lot with fashion, doesn't it? But there's certain things that always remain. And I think that freshness of the prints and the whites is probably what's been constant.
Yes. Yeah. And I wanted to say how much I like just looking around here, but also in the book. Your house is beautiful, but it also looks lived in. There are chairs where you can see the stuffing poking out a little bit, and there are dogs as we've just
dogs
seen.
on the sofa,
and touches of humour. You've got a portrait in your hall where somebody's put a paper hat on. I think on Christmas, stuck a paper hat on, and I feel like that's a bit conscious, not taking it too seriously. I mean, that's all we've talked about in this conversation, but just to have a homely feel, but also, just not too serious, I suppose.
I think, for me, I think it's really important. I would hate to appear pompous in anything ever. I think that would be my biggest dread. I just can't. It's one of those things that I would just know. I'm a designer, but I don't want my house to be so perfect. It feels too precious, and I love humour and warmth and all of that. And I want my friends and my family, when they come, to feel really comfortable. And it's really important to me as well. When I get back home, I've been a long day at work, arrive back, I like seeing my grand Italian painting with the man wearing the paper hat. He's also very, very bald, so it hides his bald head, and he looks a lot better. But it's that mix, isn't that what we love in life? Is that balance of just, you turn the dial until it feels comfortable. And to me, if there's too much novelty, it becomes a bit kitsch, and I'm not really comfortable with that. But just a little bit of lightness and fun. And that if you can get the balance right, it feels good.
I think that's very, very true. You were talking a little bit earlier about sort of spray painting tables and things, and I wondered if you had any favourite sort of money-saving hacks that you could share with us, because of course we can't all live in such a wonderful place, but given that we're all having to spend quite a lot of time, more time at home at the moment, and a lot of us are working from home where we don't before. I wondered how you think we can all make the best of our spaces, because it's important, isn't it, to feel at home, to feel comfortable, to like your surroundings, and particularly when money is tight, though.
I mean, one of the easy ways to make something work really well, I think, is to work at what you really like to collect, and then display things in collections and groups. To me, that's always been a really, really calm and easy way to think about decorating. So as I'm telling you this, I'm thinking about my bathroom upstairs, where I've spent many years going to Greece, and I have a complete love affair with all things Greek. And so anything blue and white, or Greek blue and white, I've collected over the years. It has a place. And I love my bathroom now, my blue and white Greek bathroom, and I've printed paper in blue and white to put in the cabinets. It's become a very easy way for me to kind of pull a room together and keep it calm. And I've seen, a friend of mine's done some amazing hotels with collecting things like baskets in one room, but it's how you choose to do something. But colour is often a good way to collect things, isn't it? And it needn't be expensive, or thinking of a style or whatever it is. But I think focusing and editing like that really helps. And from that, you can spend as little or as much as you want in your budget. We all know now you can buy so much. Well, I love the way it's now called upcycled rather than vintage.
So now I have a question from Louise, who's my fellow co-director of the festival. And she says, I hate fake flowers. I always have done. Do you have any aesthetic pet hates?
She better not come in my kitchen. I have some that when I haven't been to gather flowers from wherever, on a December or January night, when I come back, I've got my one vase of fake dahlias. I was thinking about this. I think the thing I don't like is cushions when they're displayed that way, pointed. I like them straight.
Oh.
And it's weird.
Point
like,
straight up.
I don't like a point straight up. I like them straight, like I've got them. And it's just a symmetry thing for me. And I think it's about my kind of, other people would probably think completely the other way around. And it's not a taste thing, it's just a personal thing. I don't like cushions pointing upwards.
So you heard it here first.
I'm not sure it's a good or a bad thing, but that's just my view.
So I think it'd be fair to say that every home is a work in progress, and so tell us how yours is still evolving.
Oh, it certainly is, and I hope it always will be, because isn't that the fun of it? I mean, there's one thing, when we moved in here, I made one really, really bad mistake, which is, it's easy to choose paint colours once you've moved in, and lots of things for a house. You can choose your sofa 3 years later or whatever. But I had to choose carpet in a hurry before Christmas. And I don't know what came over me, but I chose this quite strong green carpet for the top landing and the top stairs. And I really don't like it. And it's so expensive, isn't it, to change carpet? So that's on my list of what do I need to do to either make the green carpet, it's emerald green, it's nice, but not there. And how do I make the carpet work? Or do I bite the bullet and eventually just put down something more sensible? So that's a tricky one. But that's an example, because often things are mistakes, and then you have to kind of either live with them, and sometimes they're happy mistakes, or it's a question of just not being so impatient and trying to do things a bit more sort of thoughtfully, I guess.
Thank you so much, Cath, for sharing all that personal inspiration and for allowing us into your lovely house. That was such a treat to do. I really hope that you enjoyed it. A reminder that you can buy Cath's wonderfully inspiring book, A Place Called Home, in which you can see much more of her house and her dogs, in fact, from our festival booksellers, Stroud Bookshop, stroudbookshop.com. We urge you to buy it from them or from your local independent bookshop at this very difficult time for independent retailers. And if you'd enjoyed this event and you'd like to support Stroud Book Festival, perhaps by donating what you might have paid for a ticket today, details of how to do this are on our website, stroudbookfestival.org.uk. Now, coming up next at 7 o'clock, an exclusive preview chance to hear about what will undoubtedly be one of the most talked about novels of 2021, Tall Bones by 24-year-old Gloucestershire author Anna Bailey. Do join us then.